All right, so for day 2, we're going to do kind of the same thing as all the other day 2s. But let's go ahead and start with this warm-up, make sure we're all on the same page about day 1 stuff. Okay, and we're going to do this one together. If you want to try it on your own, you can. But I say let's do this one together. All right, so the first thing is if you have fractions and you're like, I don't want fractions, what can you do to get rid of those fractions? Multiply. And what would you multiply here? 4. So let's do that. So that would become 8y. And see how the 4 and the 1/4? That would cancel out. That would become 16x. That would become 32. Okay, now with parabolas, you're going to have an x squared or y squared, but not both. Okay, the other 3 conics had both of those things. Ultimately, what you want is whatever is being squared, you want that thing, and then its buddy right here, the other thing with the x, you want those on the same side, and you want the one without the squared, and then the other number, you want those on the other side. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do here. This is where you kind of have a choice. I'm going to add x squared to the other side. Why do you think I'm doing that as opposed to subtracting 16?
It's negative.
Yeah, why do we want to deal with a negative if we don't have to? All right, and so I have an 8y, and then I need to subtract the 32 over here. This is how you have to set up the parabola problems. All right, now we're ready to complete the square. Start with that number 16. Half it, box it, square it, all that good stuff. Okay, if you add 64, that transforms this trinomial into x plus 8 squared. But if you add a 64 to the right, what do you have to do to the left? You have to add a 64, so I'll squeeze it right in there. Okay, so I already have 8y. What's negative 32 plus 64? Or maybe that's easier to think of, what is 64 minus 32? 32, positive, right? So plus 32. Okay, does anybody remember what the next step is going to be? We want to get y by itself, so what should we do?
Subtract 32.
Subtract 32, so I'm going to put it right at the end here. And remember, we just want y equals, or in another problem, we may just want x equals. But, so if I just want y equals, then what do I need to do? Divide by 8. The more you do this, the easier it's going to get. The first few times you see it, really weird, and it gets easier. So how am I going to write this as just a single number out in front of 1/8? Because this is like a 1 over 8. And this is going to be 4. And so there's our standard equation. I'm not going to rewrite it. I am going to change the zoom, though, so I can see everything at one time. One more. Okay. So, 4, and you might want to have your blue sheet out. What type of parabola is this? It's a vertical. How do you know that? Because it says y equals, right? Is this going to open up or down? It's going to open up. It's going to look like this. Okay, so the vertex is, the x value is right on the inside, and remember, this number in parentheses, we always have to go opposite the sign, whereas the number to the right, we're going to leave alone. That's how you have to do it with parabolas. And we're going to plot these points, or this point. And that's our vertex. Remember, parabolas did not have a center. It was just, you started with the vertex. If this is going to open up, then the axis of symmetry is going to go right through there. What type of line is that? Vertical. So x equals what? -8. To do the next thing, you have to figure out what p equals. And let me remind you, I'm going to do this over here because we'll have more space. that you have the formula A equals 1 over 4p. That's on your blue card. And remember, A is 1/8. So I'm gonna do a little bit of erasing here, and I'm gonna set that equal to 1/8. Then we're gonna cross multiply. 4p equals 8, so p equals 2. And that tells us how far to go up and down from the vertex. So we go up 2, that's our focus. Okay, so it's still, the x value is still -8, the y value is -2.
So A is always what's in front of the parentheses.
Exactly. Okay, the directrix, you go the opposite direction, 2 down. And then you notice how the axis of symmetry, if I label that with an A, the directrix, one will be vertical and one will be horizontal. So we're going to go y equals, and it looks like we're crossing right at -6. All right, and if p is 2, then what is 4 times p? 8. Take absolute value, still 8. So remember, this was valuable because it told us, like, if I have a parabola going through here, it's going to be 8 wide. This is called the focal width. This is how wide, whoops, DPH. This is how wide the parabola is through the focus. So if it's 8 wide, okay, we're going to go 4 one direction, we're going to go 4 the other direction, and this is what we call the focal chord, or the focal width. And so this is a pretty wide parabola. I did not talk about this yesterday, but do you remember how before, when we talk about parabolas, if the number in front of the x squared is really tiny, what does that typically do to the parabola? I used to have a saying in my Algebra 1 class, and I said, fractions make it fat. 1/8, that's a fraction. It's going to make this parabola really wide. Whereas if this had been a really big number, it would make a very skinny parabola. Okay, so we're going to go the opposite direction here. So how do you think we're going to start this problem? They give us some information. They give us a grid over here. Yeah, plot it. And label it. Always make sure you're labeling everything. I will say, I think the most common mistake students make is getting x equals and y equals lines mixed up. So remember, you have that nice hoi vux thing. Y equals would be horizontal. Okay, I'm going to switch colors to do the second part. Where is the vertex in relationship to the directrix and the focus?
What did you say?
Where's the vertex located in relationship to the focus and the directrix? If we look back at our previous problem, see the vertex right here? It's halfway between the focus and the directrix because we went up P and down P. So it should be right there. So let's write that down. The vertex is at the point 1, -2. Okay, we also know that P is 1. Now technically here, P is -1. All right, I'm putting, for the people watching this and for all of you, technically P is -1, but I'm going to show you how, if you miss that, it's actually no big deal. We can catch it at the end. Okay, how do I know that P is 1? That's the distance from vertex to focus. That's what P was. All right, and so there's lots of stuff we now know. Okay, if I just make a quick sketch, by the way, this is just, I'm not saying this is accurate, but you kind of want to sketch it so that the focus is in the middle. You want to make sure you understand, first of all, this is a vertical parabola, so it's going to be y equals, not x equals, and that since this opens down, what do you know what has to be in front?
Negative.
A negative. So if you miss that P is technically negative, you're fine as long as you make sure there's a negative in there. Okay, P doesn't go here, but A does. And remember, A, the relationship is 1/4P. And that's on your formula card. So if P is 1, then what's A? 1/4. 4 times 1, which is 1 over 4. And the negative is there because of the direction, opening down. Okay, parenthesis. Either look at the previous problem or look at your formula card. We know that there's an x that goes there, something squared, and then some other number. This is where your vertex comes into play. Okay? So look at the x value. It has to be opposite. Always inside the parentheses squared, you have to do the opposite sign. But out here, you have to do the same sign. So that's how you come up with your answer. How could you check this in your calculator? Graph it and just make sure all the information. It's not going to graph the directrix for you or focus, but it'll look like your picture. Okay, let's try another one. This time, they give us the vertex, which is really nice. But that alone doesn't tell me whether this is vertical or horizontal. So let's go ahead and graph it. And the graph is here for you to do as much work as you need to figure everything else out. So there's the vertex. Okay, axis of symmetry, y equals 4. What type of line is y equals 4? Horizontal. So let's graph that. And what that means is that this line is cutting my parabola in half. So this is going to be a horizontal. I don't know yet if this opens right or left. I'm going to have to keep reading the information. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say opens, and then I'll leave a blank there. All right. Okay, let's look at the rest of the information. Length of the focal chord is 8. How does that help us? Yep, 4p is the same as length of the focal chord, so what does p equal? If 4p equals 8, 2. All right, and so I'm either going to go right 2 or left 2 to get the focus. All right, I don't need to necessarily do that, but that's what that means. This says that A is positive, so I now do know which direction this opens. Which way? Right. This is horizontal. If A was positive, we open to the right. And again, this is just a sketch to help you. Okay, so for horizontal parabolas, we're going to go x equals. The next number we write here has to be positive. Is it going to be positive 2? We need an A here. And let me just remind you real quick of that formula. A equals 1 over 4p. P is 2, so 1 over 8. Are y'all understanding how I'm getting that? If P is 2, 1 over 4 times 2, that's 8, and it's positive because they told me A is positive. Okay, from here, we got to write everything like this, and this is where I kind of slow down really quick. I take the vertex. You got to make sure you put the numbers in the right place. If this was a multiple choice question, I guarantee you one of the answer choices would be where everything's in the right place, and one of them would be where they're swapped. So you have to be really careful. See how this is a y? You want the y value to go next to that. So am I going to write y plus 4 or y minus 4, since this is inside parentheses squared? Minus 4. It's always circles, ellipses, hyperbolas, and then this part of a parabola, inside parentheses squared, we use the opposite side. But I'm using 4 because remember we have like x and y value. That's next to a y. So then the other number, just as it is what goes out to the side.
B plus 2 though? Opposite?
You only do opposite inside the parentheses. That's a great question. You do opposite inside the parentheses. Now for our other 3 conics, both parts were inside parentheses, but with parabolas, only this is inside parentheses. I know that's kind of confusing. That's why we're just going to keep practicing it. All right, I would have you do C on your own, but it kind of poses a new challenge. So let's do this one together, and then you guys are going to have lots of time to do your homework. Okay, vertex 3, 6. Let's plot it. This alone does not tell me which direction, up, down, left, or right. I have to read into this more. Okay, it contains the 0.44. So let me tell you, just without looking at the second part, there's actually two things that could be happening. This parabola could be opening down, or it could be opening to the right. I don't know until I look at the last part. Horizontal axis of symmetry. So you got to remember what horizontal, remember this is our vertex. Horizontal looks like this. So which direction is this horizontal? I mean, this is horizontal. Okay? And it has to open to the right because that's where the point is. Okay, right? It has to do something like this. Okay, so I know what I'm going to, well, let's just write down what we have here. We have x equals. I don't know what p equals yet. I know that a is positive because this opens to the right, but I'm going to leave a blank here for now. Okay, let's make sure we know. This is kind of review from the last problem. I want you to put the numbers from the vertex in, and then I'll explain to you how we're going to find a. Like which number goes where and which is opposite and which is the same. If you need a hint, C just like B, because it's horizontal.
-3, +6.
So which of part of the vertex, see how this is y right here? Which part of the vertex corresponds to the y? The 6. See how this is x, and this is always the first number is x and the second number is y. So you want to pick that number. If this had, let me finish this and let me show you a different thing that could have happened. And then the other number just by itself goes to the side. If on another problem we knew this was vertical, sorry, I'm writing the same thing. We knew this was vertical, so y equals. So this is not the same problem. Oops. I would have put the 3 since it corresponds to the x. If the x is on the inside, then you go opposite the x and then same y. So that's what we would have done if this had been vertical. Okay, I'm going to erase that because I don't want it later on to confuse anybody. Okay, so what do we not know? We don't know A. So let's put A here. And what do we know that we really haven't used that much? The point. And this was actually, what I'm about to do is how you had to do the bonus on the last quiz. So everybody that needs to take the quiz from now on, you will not get to do the bonus because you're kind of getting an unfair hint here. Okay, so the 0.44. The 4 is an x and the other 4 is a y. So if we get it mixed up, no big deal. So look what I'm going to do here. We have not done this yet. This is new. Put the 4 in for x. Put the 4 in for y. And see how it's only numbers left? We can figure out what A equals now. So let's do the number crunching. 4 minus 6 is -2. PIMDAS says we've got to do that exponent in the parentheses before I add the 3. So that's going to become 4. Then I'm going to subtract 3 and get 1 equals 4a. So what does just a equal? 1/4. And it's positive, just like how I said it would be. So x equals 1/4. Just rewrite your problem. Don't put the 4's in. We use the 4's. We're done with them. We don't need them anymore. Okay? So I'm let me undo that. I'm basically going right back up. And instead of writing A, I'm writing the actual number.